growth. The hardest, scariest part is starting. Once you get beyond that, and you open your doors and it's a miraculous moment and you're overjoyed, now you got to get people to your door.
Welcome to the Outworkem podcast. My name is Ryan. I'm here with David from Exclusive Pest Solutions, correct?
You got it. That's it.
Awesome. Well, we got David K and Ryan K in the building today. I just noticed his last name starts with a K. What's your last name, David?
It's Kiser.
David Kiser. Welcome to the program.
Sir. Thank you. Glad to be here. Appreciate having me here.
Yeah. David and I met through a social media marketing group, and I'm really excited about today's podcast because he takes his marketing really seriously. He's also used it in a way that I've got to observe him grow his business. So I'm excited to hear about marketing and share what's worked for him with the audience here today. David, any opening message here for the listeners?
Well, I'm happy to be here, and to be able to have built something that has allowed me to be here. I think that's just really the coolest thing about business, right? Is the doors it can open and the places it can take you if you're really committed to it. So, my message would be if you're planning on starting a business or if you've got a business that you're growing, stick with it. Don't give up, and you will reach the finish line eventually. And I'm still well on my journey. I haven't even, I'm still crushing milestones, but that would be my opener. Yeah, just keep going.
I like it. And so I got to ask, why pest control? What got you started?
That's a fair question. I actually get asked that a lot. So I think, for a lot of us, sometimes it's something called kismet, which is basically a fancy word for fate, right? It kind of fell in my lap. It was not something that I was seeking out. I didn't, grow up at school and say, I want to be an astronaut or a pest control guy, right? But, I was a mechanic when I moved out to Arizona, and it was a hobby that I loved, and I didn't want to kill it by working it to death. And so I started looking elsewhere, and a friend of mine worked in sales for pest control. And so I got my foot in the door with a commercial pest control company. They did apartment complexes, and then big warehouses and stuff like that, which is kind of the stuff you see on YouTube, or the Discovery Channel, where there's just roaches and stuff everywhere. That's where you learn, in the trenches. But I got introduced to it, and I worked a couple of years as a technician. And I saw the different facets of the business, and I was interested in how they all kind of worked together. Additionally, as a technician, and just in complete honesty, when you're running all the invoices and payments for a company, that's got a route of 250, 300 customers, you kind of get to peek into the profit, or just the revenue margins that route is generating, just by working it and managing the master list and scheduling and collecting payments yourself. And so early on, I had the thought, this is definitely a lucrative business from a business standpoint, but I also get to help people. And I think the longer I stayed in the industry, the more I realized my skill set was really well aligned with dealing face to face with customers and solving problems for them honestly and genuinely. No fluff, no smoke and mirrors, just helping people. So I leaned into that really heavily, and I'm glad that I did. It's changed my life for the better.
That's awesome. So from mechanic, wanting to keep that as a hobby, got yourself into doing some sales for a pest control company, and then after seeing how the numbers work out, you're like, oh, this could be a good fit for me. That's intriguing. I like it.
Yeah. You sit next to the cash flow, and when you have to have ownership over the route and dealing with the customers, if you make a mistake, you're the one who has to talk to them, and I think it really polishes a lot of life skills in general too. So yeah, man, I'm blessed that I found it and that it found me.
Yeah. Was there a specific moment or day that you remember when you were like, I'm starting my own business?
Yeah, actually, and maybe everyone in our position can relate, maybe not. But I worked in the pest control industry for a decade, as an employee, and
Hmm.
from technician to sales to customer service, service manager, branch manager, everything in between. And I just lost my train of thought. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, totally. No worries. Just do you remember that specific moment or day when you decided? You,
Yeah. So after a decade or longer in the industry, I actually chose to step out
hmm
and fall back into my background. I had a little bit of a background in marketing as well,
hmm
and so I went to work for a social media marketing company
hmm
for over 2 years, and I ended up being director of operations for that company, and we hit 2 million in click funnels, and I think it was 2020 or yeah 20 2020,
hmm
and. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I had a cushy job. I was making good money, but the CEO would go off on Alaskan hunting trips, and he would be gone for a couple months at a time, and in those moments I was running the entire business. And while, I certainly loved the experience that I got from it, I was I was not being paid CEO money. And
hmm
so I kind of started to think about it, and the wheels started to turn. And at the same time, I had friends and family in my ear begging me to, come back to pest control because they were having scorpions and they were paying people, and it was just not good. And so, I had saved up about 10 grand, and I finished my day and put my headset away because I did Zoom meetings all day. And I kind of leaned back and thought to myself, my CEO isn't available right now. He's out living his dream, and he's built something that can take him there. And that's awesome. Absolutely nothing but respect for that. But I feel like I have the skill sets to do that myself. And so, in that moment, I chose that I was going to make my dreams come true, and
hmm
I was going to work to build my future, in a way that I didn't think would be possible working for somebody else.
hmm
And if I'm being honest, my dad was a gold miner and a jeweler for my entire childhood, and I never watched him work for somebody else. So I think he just baked that entrepreneurial spirit into me
Yeah.
subconsciously, and it was that light bulb moment.
hmm
It all clicked.
So I already heard you encourage people to start their own thing in the beginning of the podcast here if they have that interest or that desire. I'm hearing that you kind of got that baked into you from your dad. What advice would you have, or which strategies or next steps would you give to someone who's looking to start their own pest control company? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually think about this a lot because if I could go back in time and instruct myself when starting my pest control company, there's
hmm
a lot of things that I would probably say do and don't do,
hmm
but first and foremost, do it. The biggest thing that stops someone from reaching that end goal and the finish line is just not starting in the first place. And I'm sure, in the world of business, you hear that a lot because it's just the truth. The hardest, scariest part is starting. Once you get beyond that, and you open your doors, and it's a miraculous moment, and you're overjoyed. Now you got to get people to your door, and that's the step that usually hits people like a train, especially if they're not, if they haven't worked in marketing, or they're not experienced in presenting themselves and selling themselves and getting their name and their product or service out there. And so my first recommendation would be, get on social media. This is something, that has been big for me as well. Get on social media, post regularly, create content, educate your audience in some way, provide some sort of value to them if you can. And your reputation will build through that. Do right by people.
hmm
If you're starting out slow, which is what I did, I didn't start with a lot of debt. I started with zero debt, and it's been a slow grow just so I could build a strong foundation. I would recommend doing the same thing. One of the biggest challenges for a business owner is you get all this freedom, with your own time and being in control of it. And then you have some money from a couple wins behind you, and you just want to go buy the shiniest, prettiest thing, the coolest thing. But a lot of the time, just dialing in on what you're already doing and reinvesting into your marketing and getting your name out there,
Mm-hmm.
that is a big piece. Um,
So
you know,
step one,
yeah,
I'm hearing, uh, get on social media, let people know who you are, what you do, get that
yeah.
word out there. And step two, once you get some of those wins, reinvest in your business, not the shiny objects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I think, that's a pitfall, I fell into early on, and it's one that I wish I could go back and tell myself to dodge on a couple expenses for sure.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Were those mostly like expenses for your business, personal? How did that play out for you?
I think it was a mixture of both.
Mm-hmm.
When you're starting so small and so slow, things are tough. It's not
Mm-hmm.
quite eating ramen every day, but every dollar is precious. And so, for me, I believe in reinvesting as much as I can, because the end result of that is going to be a more comfortable situation for myself anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, we all have to get extremely comfortable being uncomfortable to win in the first place. So if you're already uncomfortable, sit in the bath a little bit longer, because the reward at the end will be a lot more worthwhile. And that's kind of how I've approached it.
Yeah. What was the first big win you had from a marketing perspective?
Oh yeah, the first big win. Well, so when I first started, I bought a service vehicle, and I took on a couple of expenses right there in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
No loans, nothing like that. But I had very little customer base, and
Mm-hmm.
so I got on something called Thumbtack, and it's similar to Angie's List. And while I will admit the ecosystem has changed, and I would not recommend going there now, I think just investing in your social media presence and putting your face on content that gets circulated is better.
Mm-hmm.
My first real big win was, I got on Thumbtack, which is kind of a House Call Pro, Angie's List sort of thing. You can put yourself on there as a professional, and then, homeowners can put out jobs, and it sends it to every pro in the area, and you got to race to get to the call first, and you got to get them signed up. And so I made 25 grand off of that, in my first year.
Nice.
And so my point here is, sometimes it's the things that you don't think
Mm-hmm.
are going to be really lucrative and good for you
Mm-hmm.
to invest your time in and your money in. Don't keep your eyes focused on big things like Google ads and stuff like that, because things even just like Instagram, I think, is a better place to put time and money. And now that Thumbtack and Angie's List and a lot of those have really turned into just like a profit machine for those companies, and leads are really expensive. I think just, investing in Instagram, mostly is the way to go, but diversify and,
Mm-hmm.
keep an open mind, be creative for sure.
Nice. So you got started on Thumbtack. Things have
Yep.
evolved from there. So Instagram is right now where you're getting the most traction, and it sounds like that's
Yeah.
the advice you have for where to start these days.
Yeah. Word of mouth and doing a really good job, whatever you do, whether you're a plumber or an electrician, or, whatever your trade or your product or service is, if it's really good, people are going to talk about it, and unfortunately, because of human psychology, we're more prone to talk about negative things. So
Mm-hmm.
if you focus on doing a really good job, while the talk might move slower,
Mm-hmm.
it will be a lot better for you in the compound effect as time goes on.
Yeah.
That, and just, yeah, getting your face out there, and creating a brand, making sure you have good branding. Really, that's probably the first place to start. You get your LLC formed, you come up with the company name, and then you build the branding around that. And you want that to be strong, because that's going to help, when you're building your brand on social media and online.
Yeah.
And these days, everything's digital. So,
True that. So how are you in this digital world? Kind of a lot of businesses online. How are you differentiating yourself? Like, what would you say is your competitive advantage, or how you market yourself differently?
Yeah, it's a good question. Pest control is really a saturated market here in Phoenix. To a degree, that's a good thing because we have a lot of bugs, and I need some help. I can't do it all myself, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of other really great providers here. But the biggest unique selling proposition for me is I offer a really tailored approach to pest control. I charge a premium because I'm really responsible with the products. The reality is, if you're going to have someone come out and handle, materials like my industry is around the home and everything, you really want them to be responsible with that and apply according to the label. And a lot of that, unfortunately, gets overlooked these days. And given that there's such a high demand for it, everybody in my industry is moving fast to meet the demand. But in reality, I like to slow things down. I like to take a more detailed and expert approach to things. I
Hmm.
don't do cookie cutter spraying and stuff. And for me, that is the unique selling proposition. That is the differentiating factor. Is when you have me come out to do pest control, or exclusive in reality, you're getting a responsible application whether you're home or not. Dog bowls are picked up, pet toys, kid toys, they're removed from treatment path, even if you're not there to watch us do it or not. We care about our customers and their homes and their families. And that's really the biggest driving factor for me doing this. But yeah, I mean, just the way I do it and the level of care that goes into what I do would probably be the biggest differentiating factor. I also really care about our environment and the animals that we have in our environment. So I've really dialed things in to use. If I have to use a rodenticide, it's non-harmful to hollow bone mammals. We're not going to hurt owls or hawks or birds of prey, if they eat a dead rat. And more often than not, I'm pushing to use mechanical traps and to eliminate the use of rodenticides anyways. So yeah, a couple of things. Probably talk for days, but yeah.
I love that you brought up the birds because I'm a big bird
All right.
person. I don't know a lot about them. I'm not like the bird watcher who can tell you the
Sure.
sound or even the names of all of them, but I'm just fascinated by birds. I actually play a board game with two friends. We call it the bird game. I don't know what it's really called, but on it has cards and they teach you about how many eggs they lay, what type of
Ah,
habitats they prefer. You learn about what they eat, and it becomes like a cool way to learn about birds.
yeah,
So,
educational.
educational bird game. And
Love
then
that.
here in the desert, um, seeing the hawks and the lovebirds and the owls. Those are like three of my favorite that I get to see on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, yeah. Arizona has some really awesome wildlife. And I actually built my branding around that wildlife just because, as an agent of the Department of Agriculture, someone who is licensed to be responsible with these products, it is our job to make sure that we're taking care of the target bugs or rats and pests and nothing else. We don't want to hurt anything else out there. And I built my brand around the great horned owl. I think they're just the coolest things ever.
Hmm.
I encourage everybody to just take some time tonight to watch some YouTube videos of great horned owls. They're freaky, they're cool, they're majestic, and they're just incredible operators within the environment. The
Hmm.
purpose that they serve in our ecosystem is incredible. And so, yeah, we want to make sure that we take care of them too. And
Nice.
I put one right on my company for it, just to make sure they get the attention they deserve.
I'm gonna look into the gray horned owl this evening. Thank you for the recommendation there.
Of
Um,
course.
so I heard you mention you said as an agent of the Department of did you say agriculture?
Agriculture.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that kind of brings me to a question I wrote down. Like, what are the bare minimum steps someone needs to take to get their company up and running? I mean, I heard the basics of, you need an LLC, you need a way to process payment. Kind of after that, for the most part, you're ready to go. But sounds like there's a license you have, or you're registered in some way. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's probably the prerequisite to all of this. So in the pest control industry, to even apply pesticides, you have to get what's called a CA license or an applicator's license. With that applicator's license, you go do some classes at the Metro Center. There's an institute in downtown Phoenix that is kind of they're not attached to the Department of Agriculture, but they do all the licensing for the Department of Agriculture, and they do all the classes in education, and they have been for a very, very long time here in Phoenix. And so once you get that license, you need to spend about 3,000 hours or 3 years, whichever comes first, in the field, servicing homes, doing applications, before you can be qualified to ask for approval to take the QA test. If they approve you to take the QA test, then you do some more studying because you need to know storage and disposal. You're basically the safety
Mm-hmm.
inspector now for a company. Once you get that QA license and you test for that, and you get, I think it's over a 77. You can get a business license through the Department of Agriculture to spray pesticides on an industrial and residential level. So
Okay.
commercial buildings and residential buildings. Yep.
Mhm. Okay, and you kind of had that taken care of through your prior years' experience in the industry. 10 years, you mentioned.
Yeah, yep.
Got it.
I had a guy who wanted to start a business, and this is actually not the first business that I've helped start in the pest control world. I helped a business called Scorpion Repel or Aversion get off the ground out of their garage, and we blew them up, and they went on Shark Tank and got a deal.
Oh wow,
So I've been on
that's
Sonoran
cool.
Living and the newspaper for those guys, and really, it's you know payment processing, licensing, all of that stuff has to come together probably before you file the LLC.
Hmm.
But just by working in the industry and getting those 3,000 hours or 3 years in as
Hmm.
an applicator,
Yeah.
you can definitely go from there and really start things up.
Hmm. What would you say is the maybe the first real big challenge that you faced when you started exclusive?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. Getting more customers,
Hmm.
that was and probably always will be, the biggest challenge is trying to be fluid and adaptive in a constantly changing ecosystem of marketing and
Hmm.
trying to get ourselves out there. There's a million of me. I think there's actually 10,000 pest control companies in Arizona
Hmm.
alone, and so it's just trying to set yourself apart. But um, I'm sorry, could you repeat the question again, Ryan?
You answered it great. I just said the biggest challenge you faced, and
Yeah,
then you said getting new customers. I mean,
yeah,
it's competitive out there. You mentioned there's over 10,000 in Arizona pest control companies, so makes perfect sense. Um, and with that, you alluded to living out your dreams, and you mentioned like a prior boss that was an inspiration to start your business the way you had. So what is it that you love to spend your time and experience doing when you're not working? I hear people talk about work life balance. I think of it as work life harmony because I
yeah,
feel like the scales of balance don't really work for me in that way.
yep.
But there is harmony that I find as an entrepreneur in my way of life. So, how do you find work life harmony?
So that's a really good one, and I think that's a question that a lot of people should really think heavily about going into starting a business. This is something that I've actually struggled with. Finding that balance, and I really like the way you phrase that because, like you said, I mean the scales are always tipping, and you kind of have to be fluid with it, because sometimes the personal life is going to have demands that you have to stop and put focus on. And the business is going to do that to you too. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you fit in being a human being and spending time with your loved ones and being, enjoying your life as well? I think for me personally, the last year has been kind of an enlightenment period for me
Mm-hmm.
in finding that harmony. I've really had to put the foot down, and set hours for myself to a degree. When I finish up in the field, I've got 1 hour for scheduling. I've got, 2 hours for marketing and trying to get content recorded, maybe 3 hours if I need a little bit more time. And then, I try to now put a hard cutoff on that so that, I can spend time with my girlfriend and make dinner and, sit outside. I moved to Gold Canyon. And so we're at the base of the Superstition Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just going out in the evening and just, winding down and centering myself and taking a moment to feel everything and to just be a human being.
Yeah.
That setting those hard timers and limits for me
Mm-hmm.
has been instrumental in making sure that I have time for myself, because otherwise, there's more money to be made and there's more people to help, and I'll just keep working until
Mm-hmm.
I drop. So,
Yeah.
for me, yeah, setting those boundaries was important.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And what keeps you going on the tough days? I mean, not everyone kind of looks at it that way, but personally, whenever there's days that are a little bit more challenging, thinking of family, thinking of friends, thinking of ecstatic experiences I want to have with friends or family, and creating a life and a business that empowers that is kind of what keeps me rolling. So, kind of curious what that might be for you.
Yeah, I would say, we're definitely aligned on some things there, creating the life that I want. For me, a big part of this, and just making this number one, is my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was born in 1941. I'm 36 for scale and
Mm-hmm.
reference there. He was almost 50 when I was born. And
Mm-hmm.
so they are much older than me. And I owe them everything.
Mm-hmm.
My parents showed me a life most millennials don't get to see.
Mm-hmm.
And they always made sure I had a roof and, over my head and food in my stomach. So they're getting older, and I've got 5 other siblings who are living their own lives, and they're not really in gear to take care of my parents or help them out. But the time is coming. So I'm racing the clock, trying to get this thing up enough to where, I can help them out and provide a place for them to go. And, they just need a hand with a lot
Yeah.
of things at this point. And then secondarily, I want to create generational wealth for my family.
Mm-hmm.
All I see these days, especially in the pest control world, is buy and then sell,
Mm-hmm.
or build and then sell, or acquire to sell. And a lot of these companies get in this cycle of starting a company, getting it up to 1,000 customers, selling it off as a route to a bigger company. And then they just do that over and over. And everybody has their way. I'm not going to sit here and say that's wrong by any means, but I believe in creating a company that adds value to my community,
Mm-hmm.
and generational wealth to my family. I mean, that's my lasting effect, taking care of my family even when I'm gone. And I can't think of anything more cool than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the days get really hard and when I just want to throw my hands up, and, because I'm sure for all of us that are pushing as hard as we are, you have those days,
Yeah.
and we're going to have more of those days. But those are the things that keep my fire burning. When I get tired or weak, I'm just like, you know what? I got people who need me, and I have a life that I want to live, and we don't stop, and we'll get there eventually.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, dude.
I can't think of a better way to you know kind of tie a bow around this. Thinking of this episode as a present to someone wanting to start their own pest control business, or
Yeah.
someone who's out there on the internet trying to decide which of the 10,000 pest control companies to hire, letting them to get you, the man behind exclusive. That's how I like to make decisions as a consumer. So anytime I can wander around the internet a little bit and get to know someone a little better, it makes it a lot easier for me to make that choice. And I hope the listeners who are exploring pest control in the Gold Canyon area or the other areas that you serve find this
Mhm.
podcast and get to know you a little bit. And that way, whenever you show up to meet them in person for the first time, they already have a little bit more comfortability, a little bit more relaxed, and can drop into that conversation about how you can serve them a little easier. Um, and I like to kind of put the bow around it usually with a couple rapid fire questions. So it's kind of like answer a couple words, a sentence. You cool with that?
Let's do it.
All right. Best business book that you've read in the last 2 years.
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, I just read the book from Hormozy that Tyler had put in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also reading this book right now, which was really good. This is specific to my industry, and I would
Okay.
actually recommend this to any small pest control business owners or anybody thinking about starting a pest control business. If you're prior to starting, this would be a great book to read. It's called Zip Code Kings by Jonas Olson.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, the ultimate guide to growing your pest control company. There's a
Nice.
couple of these books out there. This one has been really good. It dives into branding and how to do your company wraps. And I just feel like it's a really good comprehensive guide for someone just starting out. Definitely recommend people check that one out. And I've been liking it a lot.
Awesome. Zip Code Kings.
Yes, sir.
Next up, best piece of advice you received from a mentor or peer.
Oh, yeah. Reinvest.
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 I like it. Favorite food.
Pho. Vietnamese pho is my favorite
Oh,
food.
nice. I love a good pho as well.
It's healing.
True that. Favorite dessert.
Okay, I'm not much of a sweets guy, but I'm gonna say cookies and cream ice cream.
Cookies and cream ice cream. There we go. And favorite color.
Yellow.
Favorite animal.
Ooh, uh, that is a really hard one. Um, this is random, but I've really been liking koala bears lately. They do some very interesting things, and I would really love to meet one in person after my latest wormhole on YouTube.
Least favorite pest.
Ooh, I got a lot of those, but I'm gonna say the bark scorpion for sure.
Favorite pest.
Favorite pest? I'm going to say this is a tie between the praying mantis and the jumping spider.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, that brings a wrap to the Q&A on your end. I'll give you 3 rapid fire questions you can ask me.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Um, what is your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur or a business owner?
Favorite thing about being an entrepreneur or business owner is getting to help other entrepreneurs and business owners. My business, digital marketing, I'm helping other business owners. So for me, getting to understand and experience, the obstacles that other people are facing and getting to help them overcome that is my favorite thing because I get to pull on all of the businesses that I've got to learn from over the last 9 years of owning and operating a digital marketing agency, and I get to share all that with whoever decides to work with me.
Love that. Okay. Your favorite food?
My favorite food, venison.
Venison. Okay, that's really cool. I used to eat a
Specific,
lot of deer jerky.
yeah, specifically the axis deer on Maui.
Wow. Okay. Well, that I have not tried. So if you're ever, around and you've got some on you, let me know.
I'll hit you up. We're gonna have some venison burgers one day.
Yes. So down for that. And my final question would be favorite vacation spot?
Maui, Hawaii.
Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah.
It sounds like I really need to go to Maui, Hawaii.
There we go. Definitely highly recommend, 10 out of 10. That's where I started my digital marketing career back in 2016. And
Cool.
every year since, I've decided to go back for about 3 to 6 months with my wife, which has been amazing. So,
Love that.
yeah. Thanks for the participating in the rapid fire Q&A. That was the first time I flipped it over and passed the baton
That was
to
fun.
receive some questions. Parting words, last words for the listeners.
Um, Start a business. Honestly, start a business. Find, whatever skill set you have or whatever it is that has your wheels turning, just do it. Just do it. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Do it.
Nike, just do it.
Just do
From
it.
David, exclusive Pesco. Uh, and if you want someone to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Honestly, you can find me on Instagram at exclusive pest solutions. You can also reach me at 602-600-6746. But I'm on Facebook. We've got a website, exclusivepest.co. And yeah, if you just search exclusive pest, you'll find me.